Everybody here? Yeah, everybody's here? All
I couldn't
righty.
figure out which one it was.
Carry on.
Yeah, that helps. Regional waste disposal ground, issue sheet from the engineering department.
That's me. Just providing this as an update for you guys. Some discussions that took place during a conference call. Do you want me to go through the entire issue sheet?
Sure.
Is that okay?
give us-
Okay.
yeah.
So 3 options were presented during the conference call in terms of the governance structure, partnership, cooperative, or regional waste management authority. So I've attached some extra documentation and some pros and cons that we went through during those discussions, as well as a document provided by, what's his name? Benjamin.
Can I interrupt there?
Yeah, absolutely.
I was reading through this, like this is not like a new concept. What are other provinces doing for the most part? Are they?
I guess it depends. We've seen number 1 and 2 seem to be the most common. I think that they were discussing. The third, the authority is much more. It's a stricter process. It takes a lot of time. Has to have provincial kind of authority or whatever granted to them to be able to do that. So 1 and 2 are sort of what other places seem to be most leaning towards in terms of a structure. And then some of the notes below those 3 options were just some of the stuff that came out of the meeting minutes. So Evergreen, which is in Minnedosa, each community member, regardless of their size, has an equal vote and equal say. So that's why we termed it as disproportionate representation. I'm not sure if that's a model that'd be appropriate, but it's something that you guys should think about. Is that something we'd be comfortable with, no matter how many partners there are, that everyone would have an equal say, regardless of if you bring 1,000 tons or 10,000 tons? Would that be appropriate? Currently, of the project scope, we would be about 30% of the total waste right now as it stands. So that's something that I think council should think about as well. Same with in Evergreen, the board members are 6 councillors. There would be a risk of a cycle of them changing all the time, and I don't know if that would be. I don't know if council should maybe be appointing someone for like a longer tenure as that. So that's something that we should think about as well. They also accept new members, so after the structure's been created, the governance structure, you can continue to add board members after. And I don't know if that would feel appropriate as well, because you would have so many board members that at a point you would say, okay, we should have a cutoff limit potentially of X amount of board members. The addition of additional board members. If you had rules in terms of a quorum, and you had 15 board members, like could you ever reach quorum, especially when you have Alliant communities coming together to meet? So I don't think that would be something that we should consider. Again, when costs are developed for regional landfill, the governance model will determine if each pursuing partners will have the same per ton cost. The operating fees that were given to us by EECOM is about $40 to $60 per ton in Canada for the average to run a landfill, and then tipping fees $14 to $22 a ton for the construction of additional cells moving forward for the operations costs.
Sam, so just if we can, so where are we in this thing? How long before you think you see this to become a reality? All the planets lining up.
2 years.
2 years? And how do you envision it? So will the town of the Pod continue to collect our garbage and then head out there and dump it? Is the mechanics of it?
I think that'd be the best option in terms of just a cost, like to continue what we're doing currently. The only thing we'd have to consider, like with the additional distance that's been, the distance that we'd have to travel to dump the waste, would it be feasible for our truck to be taking 2 or 3 trips out there a day? How much more expensive will that cost in terms of operating?
How many miles a year do you put on your trucks now?
I don't have that information, no.
They could probably double it now?
If by going to this new thing, probably triple potentially.
Triple?
Yeah, maybe even more. Something you guys had talked about in terms of a capital item was talking about maybe like a one-arm bandit truck. So we're pricing those out. It would still, there'd be a huge cost associated with that. Other places have gone to, they've gotten out of commercial garbage is one way to kind of offset that. So you figure out the metric of what those costs are for the commercial industry, and you have that privately contracted, and you just deal with residential garbage only. Some of the places we visited in terms of our site tours that we did, they have done that as well. They got on a commercial. They do no more than 6 units, like a 6-plex or 8-plex is their limit, and then after that, it's all done commercially to save some costs, and then they go to the one-armed bandit, because even if we move to a one-armed bandit system, we still would have to deal with those commercial residents in that same manner that we're currently dealing with, unless we bought bins for them and then had the truck also outfitted with a rear loading or front loading bin system. So it becomes very complex at that point in terms of how we deal with it. And then at that point, and maybe Graham and the senior men can speak to it better, but we'd probably have to figure out how much of their total commercial taxes are like garbage, and then have that separated out, because we couldn't just take the service away and then still charge them the same, like that wouldn't really be fair, yeah. So there's a huge discussion that we have to have in terms of the logistics of what we're going to be taking out there. Like, if we just did residential garbage, I think it'd be a fairly smooth transition to the regional landfill. The commercial, I think, would add those additional mileage that you're concerned, rightfully concerned about.
I think one.
Yeah, partners that we're looking at having.
So as it stands, as Town of the Paw, RM, Swampy Cree, they represent about 6 communities, is my understanding. OCN, Parks would be potentially a partner. We're trying to determine what would make the most sense for a governance structure. I'm not sure if Parks wants a seat at the table in terms of governance structure. Swampy Cree for sure does, OCN, ourselves, the RM. That's sort of the core group that we've defined as for the governance structure, we believe, at this point. Later on, we talk about, like, they use the number 20,000 tons a year as sort of your optimal amount of refuse coming to your landfill to have the most efficiency. I think we're about half to 3/4 of the way there with our current group. So they recommended, like, you know, reaching out to Flin Flon to see what their plans are in the future, and if we can bring other kind of big players in the area maybe as well on board, would make it more feasible. So we've sent a few emails out to Flin Flon to see if if you guys have any contacts there, please.
So will each partner have to have a capital contribution?
Well, that was sort of the interesting thing that came up on the conference call, because ISC, Indigenous Service Canada, is the funding body, and they were funding this up to tender. So they're paying for the project managers, PM associates, and they paid for AECOM to be the project engineer, design development. So they'd funded, they told us to tender ready, is what they've told us. And what we were waiting for was the business plan to be developed to figure out what each partnering contribution would be required in order to get in the game, and then what your tipping fees would include. During the conference call, he said something very interesting, where he said that there's been discussions in their offices that they're going to just pay for it, pay for the construction of the landfill. And I was sort of stunned silence for a while, because that was sort of new information. And that's why I waited till the meeting minutes became available to make sure I hadn't made that up in my mind, I guess. Because that changes the entire dynamics. If they're willing to pay for the construction of it, and we're just paying, you know, the operations and future development, I mean, and no capital contribution required up front, I mean, that's kind of a dream scenario for us. And I don't want to jump too far ahead, so we've been sort of pulling some information on the garbage trucks and the one-armed bandit and all that. The build time on that truck is quite a long time. They were talking 8 to 12 months in delivery time just for the truck. So once it's approved, it would still be another calendar year before the truck would even potentially be. So I just wanted to make sure I temper the expectations of 2019 budget having a truck in play.
And I don't know where they are with these machines now, but I know there's some that will take garbage on one side and recycling on the other. So one bin on one bin, and then the garbage truck will have it on. It would be separated, and then I don't know if those are efficient or not.
That would sort of limit our ability to for the amount we would be able to put in there. For sure, we wouldn't be able to do commercial if that was the case.
And then we had discussed, or I don't know, maybe it wasn't with you, but I think I put on the radar that that's something that the recycling center should look at in their business plan in terms of taking over the commercial garbage to make a few extra dollars to keep their revenue up. I mean, it wouldn't be a huge investment, I don't think, for some bins and a truck, and they have the manpower anyway, and they're, which also brings up another question in terms of obviously the building, the dump itself, but what about the equipment that will be needed out there? Like, is there like the recycling building, like kind of make more sense for that stuff to be out there, sorters?
So part of the discussion we've had with in the regional committee with our engineering design team with AE was for them to determine what makes the most financial sense. Does it make more sense to have the recycling component all move there, Or is it more efficient to just leave them as is and let them operate as they're operating, and then have some sort of, where we could bring more to them? Like, what makes sense financially? Because we don't know what the metrics are for that. So as part of the business plan, as they develop the business plan, it will speak to that exact question, and hopefully we'll have a better answer, because I know some of the people on the recycling side, they feel a little bit sort of in the dark on this, and that wasn't our intention, but we didn't want to come to them until we had some concrete information to bring forward, saying, like, the business plan says that it makes more sense for you guys to be there, and then there's going to have to be some pretty high level discussions with them, with you guys, as to how do we move them there, or do we start fresh and start, what does that transition even look like if that's the case, or do we stay status quo?
Would there be an opportunity or any point in having a discussion of turning over our entire garbage system to this new organization? I'm talking trucks and pickup and the whole thing.
If it's set up as a separate corporate entity, like in terms of partnership model, I think it's something that could be discussed. I think the economics of it would have to be in partnership with OCN and the RM before it could make sense potentially. But I think that's definitely an interesting point that should be discussed. Yeah. Because as of now, OCN seems to be, they're going to pick up their own garbage, or look at having a bin system in town where they would just, pick up a bin and take the entire bin out, a couple times a week, or however they would set it up. And the RM doesn't really have curbside, so I know the RM residents would definitely have an appetite for having someone come and do curbside collection for them and taking it out. I don't know what the feasibility of that would be in terms of, because of the sparseness of the RM in certain locations.
It might make more sense, though, to turn it all over to this new entity and we just pay a service fee.
It's definitely possible, yeah. I think that's...
I don't know.
I think they do that, a little bit of that with recycling in the parkland.
The recycling is all third party, yes.
So that might be a model to follow with this.
Saskatchewan has somewhat similar, and it's right into the rural, that they have a contractor school, they have bins on farms and everything, somewhat like the RM.
Yeah.
But that's also approved by a third party, so however they do it, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure the recycling, the regional waste disposal ground was ever looked at in terms of collecting garbage, more of just accepting it, because there's a lot of logistical issues with just accepting it. So that it would greatly expand their scope. But I mean, if you're gonna have a board and you're gonna have all those employees, I mean.
And when we get the garbage, when the garbage goes to the dump, is this, and I know you said the business plan isn't done, but is there any expectation that will be sorted once it's at the dump? Because I know right now, like, there are dumps that are taking it and then they're sorting that garbage. And then they're putting it on bins, and the conveyor belts are taking the stuff in different places, and they'll only accept certain stuff. It's like you go to the dump there, and it's almost, you'd never know that it's a dump. It's
sort of the preliminary discussions we've had, the feeling I'm getting is that the models they're gonna look at are ones where when you pull in, your metals go here, your plastic, like there'll be places for that to be sorted prior to going across the scale to get sort of as much, like, you incentivize the tipping to be as low as possible for the person by providing locations where they can sort their own before they bring it to you. And then at the scale, it's sort of, it is what, at the price of the scale stays the same.
That's not set up in Mission, BC. You drive up and it's all paved, like it's just like going someplace nice. Right? And as you drive up on the right-hand side, it's bins for just metal. Then you drive over the scales in the house there with the person. Then after that, everything goes to a different place. Like there's asphalt shingles and there's gyprock and there's
mattresses.
Everything has a different place, and then they have a big tub grinder that takes all the wood and crushes it into chips, and they sell that out to people for landscaping stuff. Like, it's quite an operation there.
When you say Swampy Creek, are you basically saying we'll be now accepting the garbage of places like Easterville and Moose Lake?
Correct, yeah. So that was part of how the funding all came to be. All those communities are sort of in the same place we are in terms of a landfill requirement or end-of-life cycle for their landfills. They still have some feasibility studies that need to be done in order to determine what their needs are in their own community in terms of transportation and depots and stuff like that. But the expectation is that everyone will be involved. I think that's
Has there been any discussion how many jobs this is gonna create?
very, very preliminary. This different sites of similar size. It's like 5 to 10 people normally, or less. So the sites we looked at down south in our tour, 5 to 10 people seem to be kind of the average for a site like this.
And how will that impact, like, the recycling, like, money that we get back? Like, in terms of
In terms of like the RARS diversion and all
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Is that, I mean, and I know we're asking like all these questions and, we're talking 2 years, but I just throw that out there. You don't have to give me an answer now, but I'm just kind of,
But I think it would depend if that's a good question, because in terms of like, because if we're doing X amount of recycling in Town of the Paw, are those dollars gonna be captured
Yeah.
back in terms of
Yeah.
so that's a really good question. That's something we brought up in terms of, when they're looking at the business plan, is how are those dollars gonna be broken up? And I think that will depend on whether, if the recycling center is gonna be staged out there, and who is gonna be operating that recycling center, if it's the same group just moving out there.
Yeah.
Or maybe maybe they take over the entire operation. Maybe they run the recycling and the garbage and everything, right? It's already set up, right? We have a decent model. Maybe we can invite other partners to the table and expand that. Again, that's,
yeah.
I can't say if that's gonna be how it's gonna work, because that's, again, that you guys will have to sit down and, we'll have to negotiate that, I guess.
So Sam, based on what's in this letter or minutes or whatever, operating fees to run a landfill, 40 to 60 per ton
Yeah.
for a landfill this size, and then $14 to $22 per ton for construction tipping fees. I guess that would be, even if it was paid for upfront, it would have to be in the cost per ton to open up a new cell, right?
Correct, but it would greatly diminish what so like in that previous business plan a couple of years ago, they brought out, it was like including if we didn't put a capital contribution,
Yeah.
and so our tipping fees were like ballooned to like double what we pay at the landfill now, right?
For sure.
Which in terms of a small business, that's like a crushing number, right, for a small business?
Yes.
So, these dollars and these tipping fees would only offset the future cell costs.
Future shop, not the original. cell.
Correct, yeah. That's the understanding I was given, yes.
So, right now, what are we averaging, what is our cost per ton for our own landfill?
We charge about $80 a ton.
No, I know, but what does it cost us per ton? Is it around that $80 mark? Like in terms of collection, operating of the landfill, whatever other costs?
I'll have to get back to you on the exact figure. I wouldn't want to give you, because right now, part of the metrics for our landfill is a substantial amount for the closure of it as well.
For sure,
So
yeah.
I don't want to give you a number without double checking that.
Okay, because it'd be nice to see that number, because and it would be nice to see, I guess, if that's, what the difference is between what we're paying now and what we'd be paying in the future, potentially. I know these are very preliminary numbers, but
Yeah.
it'd be nice to see what our landfill is costing us right now per ton, and what we could potentially be looking at in the future.
And then also the metrics get a little more confusing as well, because we have the RM bringing us refuse as well.
For sure.
So it's a very, I'll have to unpack it a bit.
As long, if we could come up with some type of number
Sure.
per ton that landfill costs the town of the Paw.
Sure.
So right now, you're basically just training, so to speak.
Yeah, just give me some information, some stuff to review, some of the 3 partnership options that we should look at. Also what ISC has given as their preferred option, the cooperative corporation model, option 2. More independence, like provides independence, transparency, and shared liability. Just make sure we have skin in the game to make sure that we have a seat at the table, that we make sure that when decisions are being made about the landfill, that we have a equal say in the matter, and I think that's really important moving forward. And as more information becomes available through the business plan, we'll definitely have to have some more discussions as well with Graham.
Would it be possible to get the agreements for those 3, Portage, Cartier, and Four Winds?
Sure.
And we could have a look at them?
I noticed some of the information you gave, like the cooperative, it talks about having more transparency, easier to set up, might cost more to staff and audits. When it came to the Regional Waste Management Authority, you had said initially that it's lengthy setup, but legislation does not contemplate First Nation involvement. So that isn't even an option, is it?
I think they were gonna look into that some more, the gentleman that was
Okay.
talking that, he said that they're gonna read into it, because I think he said they're in the process of looking at how that can be maneuvered, but yeah, that's correct, yeah.
Well, keep us up to speed. Pasco School.
So Pasco School has sent us a letter requesting a accessibility parking zone created in front of the school on 8th Street on the south side of 8th Street. I don't know if that picture was forwarded as well, just for visualization purposes. Currently, it's a 10-minute, just let me double check. A 10-minute, 20-minute pickup loading zone, that entire side. I sort of look at this sort of differently than the downtown accessible parking issue, because this is more, like, obviously parking around there isn't as big of an issue, obviously, in terms of density, and also the school, it's an incredible need that should be addressed for the school, and if that's something that we can provide and help them provide, I think it's really important that we do so. And I would recommend that we do agree to it, or look at agreeing to it, that would be my recommendation, but just in terms of purchasing the signs, the cost of install and all that, and those are sort of the only questions I guess I would ask council, if that was the decision you guys had, was who's paying for it and who's installing it.
Does it really matter at the end of the day? It's the same bucket.
Well, and again, I've made that statement, but I've been sort of, it's been explained to me that it is and it isn't, but yes, you're correct, it's the same tax pocket that it comes out of. And also just to make sure that if you guys were to move forward with that, in terms of an enforcement on it, that's a challenge for us at this time. So as long as they weren't expecting us to come in, hey, someone's parking there, come and deal with it, that'd be my only concern. It'd be something that they would have to either deal with on site or get help with dealing with, I guess.
Janet actually made a call today in one of the other schools, they police it.
Yeah.
They pretty much move people along.
Excellent, yeah, that'd be excellent, yeah.
In terms of doing this, is there if hearings and all that sort of thing?
No, it's we amend our bylaw and we pay for the sign. It would have to go through your 3 readings, because you'd have to add it to our sign list. And then if we choose to pay for the signage, then yeah. So I guess the question is, can we proceed with the amendment to the bylaw?
Consensus is yes?
Yes.
Yes.
There you go.
And are we paying for the sign?
Consensus is
Yeah.
yes?
Yes.
There you go.
Thank you.
Holy moly. Knocked off an issue that quickly. Oh, you
Don't
guys
get
say
too
that.
excited.
I'm putting that on my calendar and then.
So we'd envision like maybe 2 spots in the very front. Is that something you want us?
Sam, we're done. We heard it.
Just go ahead and do something now.
Sounds good, yeah. Okay.
I think similar to what Kelsey is.
And we'll communicate with Opasco to make sure that they're comfortable with whatever we bring forward as well. Okay.
Alrighty.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Carrie.
Better.
I can step out of the sun.
Carrie, come on up here and talk to us. People want to get paid, eh?
People want to get paid. So this is just more information update from myself as a request was put forward to look at outsourcing payroll since the most recent resignation of the payroll clerk. I had reached out to 3 different entities in regards to getting preliminary quotes based on running a basic payroll for us, a unionized payroll and salaried payroll as well, and including year-end processes such as T4s, ROEs, and moving that kind of detail off a site. I am for that move of going forward. There is one preliminary quote that I would like to explore a little bit further. Their turnaround time for install is a little bit quicker, and I've heard their reputation is a little bit better compared to one of the other resources that I reached out to. But obviously it's going to be based on kind of all in of what we want to do. There's still going to have to be someone here a designated person or persons that will still have to manage input. It doesn't just magically happen, so one of my suggestions would be taking, moving that function outside to the applicable departments that, and they can manage the timesheets of their applicable employees because they know best where they are. The union is aware of my position, and I haven't received a formal response from them, even though one will be coming. I know the position that I do want to take, but obviously my position can change based on the final financials coming back from that entity.
So what do you envision?
What do I envision?
How will it work?
I think there will be hiccups, obviously, getting used to a new system.
Biometrics?
Pardon me?
Biometrics?
Biometrics, only question I have about biometrics, because with our 8 departments, obviously a decision will have to be made if we're purchasing 8 systems, renting, there's obviously a maintenance fee, an annual maintenance fee that goes along with that. My only question is some of our staff move from department to department. I'll use myself, for instance, so in the morning if I come in, I scan, I fingerprint, whatever it is, in my main building here, and I go over to the wellness center to do interviews from 4 to 6. Am I able to scan out there? That's my only question. Or is it gonna be site-specific? So that,
Good question.
I don't know, right?
Someone still needs to compare the actual time card to the biometric as well, though.
Do we
Yes.
have time card? Will there?
Well,
Should there be a
there
print
should be.
out?
Yeah, there will be some generic time
Yeah.
cards, because we do have to provide the outside parties with our coding. My other secondary thing too in regards to coding, just to make sure whatever reports are generated outside, we're able to incorporate back into VADM, because I don't want to impact the financials, because a lot of our work codes are attached to work orders for obviously work that we do. So I don't want that skewed, because right now everything's filtered through VADM, financial, HR, and payroll.
Yeah, 12 and 7. You'll get a
Yeah.
good journal report that you can just journal entry in.
Yeah.
He'll have fun and he's living, he's just excited.
Yeah, I will be honest, it's not basic, it's not that, we're just paying a regular wage and the basic standard required deductions. We have pension, we have benefits.
Have you ever seen the hospital pay stub?
No,
There is no way in God's green earth that you are more complicated than them. There is no way. And that's what they, hand scanners at the doors, and
yeah,
it's all in the setup.
yeah. So as long as those little things work that I may have questions to, obviously I'll need support from you guys, my supervisor, in regards to filtering that
Did you ever
detail
talk
down.
to the hospital?
No.
Might be worth a call, just to see how they do it, because theirs is extreme.
I talked to another local business here. Ironically, they had dealt with one of the vendors or contacts that I had gone out to. Very, very poor management. They ended up switching to the vendor that I actually want to look at. Yeah, so.
So in terms of like comparison costs and stuff, so the person or whatever, we're not going to rehire for that. So did that person just strictly, is that all they did? Or did they do a bunch of other stuff?
It was pension and benefit detail, yes. So short-term disability, long-term disability.
That was our main function.
Yeah. T4s, health and ed tax, all other stuff.
Okay.
ROEs, yeah, all the basic stuff. So whatever we request, there will be a cost, so.
From a high level look that you've seen the cost now, does it make sense to you?
There will be a cost savings, I think, preliminarily, yeah.
And there will be a cost savings in payroll.
Yes. Overall, yeah, I believe so. But again, that's preliminary, a preliminary response from me, so just want to make sure.
So what I'd like to do is see her dig deeper into this, but before we sent her on that chase, we wanted to make sure this was the direction of council. But that would be my recommendation, is for her to move forward further into the vendor you're looking at.
The cost of the clocks, it took years for us to get our money back.
My recommendation would at least leave it. Because you know what's gonna happen, right? 4 years will be outdated, you'll buy 4 new ones.
Yeah.
At least if you lease them.
It's their program, yeah.
Yeah,
So the lease cost a lot, I guess. I don't know. This one doesn't. The one quote has a lease cost, and then the other quote doesn't have a lease.
Yep.
And the good part about that is then it becomes their problem. If we have a problem, hey, we're leasing this from you, you fix this.
Yeah,
It's
come
not
and fix
ours.
it.
Yeah.
Give us an extra one to have on site that, for when one breaks down or whatever.
So the consensus is we keep moving forward?
Yeah.
Yep.
Easy peasy.
Thank you, Carrie, for your diligent work.
Oh. No
How has it been going without having an employee in that position as of right now?
The person doing it, she's done very well with the keying. I've tried to pick up the pension and benefit detail, and things have been going well.
Okay.
Believe me, I'll hear if it doesn't.
But it can't go for long. We-
No, I
yeah.
realize that,
Yeah.
it's been
That's,
cobbled
we're
together
lucky,
for
yeah.
sure.
We are lucky that we have some staff that are pretty fluent in things, so that helped us a lot.
Yeah.
No, I just wanted to make sure
But
that
you can
people are
see-
still getting paid.
Yeah, and you can see easily that person being burnt out
You haven't had
because,
nobody knocking at your door lately.
Not on my door, no. They wouldn't come to my door, they'd come to his door.
Okay.
Okay. awesome.
Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you.
All right. Graham, you've been taking the money from the wrong accounts, have you?
Don't pay me with this brush, this isn't me. This is previous council making decisions that I wasn't party to.
I'm gonna own it.
I'd own it if it was me.
No problem.
I don't think this is a really big deal.
No.
Honestly, I think the capacity is there to absorb this. I don't think this is overly material. I'd rather deal with it now than let it keep floating down the road. That was the nature of the discussion I had with Sean Lucio from the province, was deal with it now, get it done. Otherwise, they're just gonna chase us, and then maybe I'll leave, and then maybe the next person will come around looking at this, new council, and just keep spinning. So, for the amount of money we receive from these guys and what that allows us to do, I just don't think this is really worth discussing much. But the only option here is whether you want to absorb these prior year issues into the current year operating, or you want to write it off into the reserves. Again, I think the intent there was pay it with reserve money, capital for capital. I think by pulling it back into the reserves where it fits, that makes the most sense. Otherwise, you're generating a bigger loss, right?
With the exception of the community enhancement fund that we've talked about, is there enough surplus in the 18 operations to absorb this?
18 operations.
Yeah, like we're gonna show a profit in 2018?
Again, I don't know yet. We'll see. I'm still plugging away at it, so.
We'd like to take it just from that profit.
Well, it would be, but, I mean, is that something you want to leave?
What would be left in those reserve accounts if we take it from there?
Well, it depends. Did Brandy circulate that email?
no, I didn't.
Okay, so, obviously, since I'm still working on the year end, those numbers are gonna shift a little bit, but we were looking at about 1.4 million in the utility account, about almost 700,000 in the infrastructure account, and about 30,000 in the cemetery. So, you know, the nature of these, it was like 30, 16, and 30, like, I mean, it's just not that significant, right?
Yeah.
I'd rather just get it off the books, give her an answer, so they let us off the hook, and stop chasing us about this.
Could we just wait until you finish the 18 numbers? Just in case we have a
I
surplus?
don't think you want to wait that long.
Well, you're almost done, I thought.
Yeah, my part will be done, it goes to the auditor, we could be, again, you're looking at maybe June, you're getting audited statements, maybe May, I mean,
It's just if we have a surplus, I'd rather use it.
yeah, but are you willing to bet on it, right? And, you know, realistically, if there's a
Well, not for you,
surplus.
You're the guy keeping track.
Well, realistically, if we see that surplus, we can always throw it back into a general reserve, we can use that money later. I don't know why this has to be something we hang on to, right? I'm hopeful, I'm optimistic we'll see a surplus, but I sure don't want to tell you that, and then we'll see something else.
I would say just get rid of it now, be done with it, that would be my suggestion. My other suggestion, not a suggestion, but my other question is why is this so hard to spend this money?
Well, you know, I think at the beginning, my understanding, reading through some of these old documents that I left in the office, was the rules have changed over time, right? They started with a very small, narrow margin of things you can spend it on, the rules are around it, no one was policing it. The province was handling it, but the federal government had the last say. So even in the last year I've been here, they started changing some things, asking for more details on other things. Tell us how many watts you've saved on the electric stuff you installed, things like that. So I think the federal government's cracking down on the province, and then it's flowing down on us a little bit. So I think that's what's happening. There is still, and the margin of things that are being allowed are a little wide. So if you pick big capital projects that are just blatant, we have those coming in. We should never run into this. Like, it should never, if you're ever doubting that it fits the mold, I don't know why you would even consider it. We have other reserves for those things. So that's kind of where my mind goes when I'm...
Yeah, but I don't know, my concern is when those big projects that we can spend the money on, they're not allowing us to staff and use this money with...
Moderate projects then.
Yeah.
Things like, you know, the one-arm bandit we're talking about, that's gonna be $1 million. Like, I mean, are we gonna get funding for that? If not, then this is the route to go, right? We can lump these out pretty quick. There'll be some other ones like that as well. We had talked about doing some road repairs and stuff like that. So I mean, you can eat that money up pretty quick if you're looking for ways to do it.
So when I was reading this, they owe us money right now, right?
They held on to a couple of last year's, I think,
Yeah.
and one of 17 as well, because there was some reporting that was overdue when I started, and so it's all in there. They were holding on to it because they were looking at these balances going, wow, we're not sure if we're going to accept these. They sent them into the
So
federal
really,
government.
to really get rid of all that.
Well, that's the idea. They want us to clear it so they can open up the floodgate again. Then we're going to run into stuff with the asset management plan right away, because
Well, whatever.
that's got to be done, and or they're going to stop it again. It seems to be on a cycle of their demands, they get ahead of themselves, and they start putting out these things. So as long as we don't halt too long,
Well, I'm like...
I like having this money in our bank account.
Yeah, I think we should just get rid of these and just get them gone.
What's the difference if we get rid of them now or wait till they're operating? Like, why would we, what's the benefit of doing either?
They'll pay us the 2 or 3 outstanding payments
Yeah.
immediately.
If we get rid of it now?
If we get rid of it now.
And if we wait till, as Herb is suggesting,
It could be a whole nother year before we get it all done, because they work in their cycle too, right? So,
they have deadlines in
they
place?
have deadlines in place as well.
So do they have a deadline now for us to clear this up?
Well, she wanted an answer immediately, but I said that I wanted to take it to council, so. I don't know why we would deliberate on this, I just don't know what reason we would have to do that.
Yeah. No, I'm just asking, I'm trying to figure out why we would be doing.
But it just doesn't, I just don't see how it benefits us to hold on to it. If we end up having a surplus, let's just push that surplus into next year. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't,
Well, the thing of it is to get them to release the money that they're holding from us
absolutely.
and get it here.
I kind of mentioned, being frank with her, saying I like having it in our account because it generates interest for us, it lets us
Well, exactly.
potentially, you know,
Yeah.
a little more mobility with our money, and she was like, oh, don't tell me that. And I was like, well,
Like, it's a fair chunk of money, but
it is.
I
And
suggest we just pay it.
Well, and it's not even money out of our accounts, I'm just shuffling things
Yeah.
between reserves,
Yeah,
right?
it's
So
done.
it'll just be done and over with, so.
So you look at the energy study there, or say the cemetery software, you're saying use the cemetery money, the 30, and then what would you
Meat finder
further?
goes to utility, the
Okay.
food study to utility,
Okay.
energy to infra, I'm just saying to
Okay.
the infrastructure account. It was just my,
Okay.
give them to the places where they benefit.
so.
They should've gone there in the
It's kind
first
of- It's
place.
kind of a funny part, I'm gonna ask you.
It says right there.
Is why would they have done this in the beginning?
They probably just didn't know, and they thought it was a good pot to pull from, right?
Okay.
And then nobody from the province was saying, no, you can't do that. I remember even when I started, we had talked about the arena broke down or whatever, and so I had called and asked, and they gave me some really lukewarm answers. Can we do this? Oh, well, hum, 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 hum. And I was like, well, you're not really
Yeah.
helpful. So-
Until something like this happens.
Until something like this
Yeah.
happens.
It's
And
very
I
broad,
suspect,
it says you can spend it on recreation, but
yeah, like I
what does
said,
that entail?
I suspect the push comes from the federal government years later, and they go, no, 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 and then the province goes, oh, well, no.
That's not what we meant.
Yeah.
Obviously, somebody has done worse.
Oh, I'm sure. Like I said, I don't think this is a big deal. I'm surprised it's only these items. I thought there was gonna be more. So, there may be more.
So the consensus is to move it from the reserves, as
Yeah.
Ray was suggested?
Yes.
All right, there we go.
Another one, yeah.
Engagement letter.
it's a formality. We've approved the audit of Collins Barrows for the 3-year term of 2018 to 2020, but we require a resolution to sign the engagement letter. And again, just a reminder, they're at $24,950 a year.
Yep.
So a resolution.
Bylaw enforcement, Councillor Murphy.
Well, I have no idea what we wanna do there, to be honest with you. But I do know we have to do something. And so I did see, all the information that Jen, thanks Sarah, put in there, but, you know, my thoughts are on this whole bylaw, and again, I just wanted it here for a discussion tonight, and not that I have this grand plan, but, we need to really look at that position and the value that it can bring to the community. And not so much as a traditional bylaw officer, but as a, you know, some sort of community advocate that helps us deal with some of the challenges we have in our core, work closely with maybe some of the other regional health authorities to help with any social or mental health issues. And then on top of that, having some sort of connection to the town as well as to deal with some of the bylaw issues. So I think that what I would like to see us is maybe have a couple of guys get together, look at a non-traditional position with not having to be a first aider and be a fireman or whoever it happens to be, and see how we can change that. The other thoughts I had is even on hours of work, not having traditional, I come to work Monday to Friday from 8 to 4:30. Maybe my job is noon till 8 on one day, and sometimes I take Tuesday, Wednesday off, and make it a little bit random. So just wanted to throw it out there because it's been on my mind. I hear we talk about bylaws, that we have all these bylaws that are never been enforced anyways, and we have all these other issues downtown that maybe we could bring some presence and provide some direction and help.
I mean, yeah, and I think maybe the police need to be part of that group, because I don't know what, I mean, off the top of my head, what's the bylaw officer, what can they do?
Yeah.
What is their role, what training do they need? Can they, you know, are they just going to be another person to say, I'm gonna call the police now?
Well, and that's
And
kind
that's
of, yeah, and I use the bylaw officer, Trevor, is, because that's what everybody was calling it. I
Yeah.
agree. I mean, I think it should be somebody, you know, my personal, you know, if you could just have a magic wand and create whatever you want, you know, somebody that has some mental health, counseling type of experience, somebody that can relate to people that are maybe in that challenging time in their lives, as well be administrative enough to be able to help out with certain things that we may want to work with. You know, have good relationships with the RCMP or whoever it happens to be, that Bear Clan Patrol or whatever. But start from scratch. Don't take the copy of the bylaw officer or the safety officer out of the filing cabinet and hire one of those, but create it. Get some input and see what we need to do.
Well, that was kind of like that coalition job, Randy, right?
Nope.
No?
Different,
Kind of different?
completely.
So, backing up to, we had a bylaw officer before.
Yeah.
Now, was he ineffective, or, like, why didn't we continue? Like, what happened?
That got past Chad.
The person in the position was no longer in the position. I believe that
Budget cut,
position.
and then it went to a budget cut.
Yeah, I think it was advertised, nobody applied, and then it was just cut at budget time,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
But I think we need more than, like, my vision is we need more than a bylaw officer. Like, if, that's the easy thing that we could do, and then somebody's gonna read all these bylaws, go around and hand out tickets and, you know, and be around downtown from 8 to 4:30 and then go away. What I think we need more than that, and drop I know maybe I shouldn't have put bylaw officer there, but I didn't know what else to put. Call it something, community liaison or,
agent officer, whatever.
whatever it happens to be, that may do some work with bylaws in part of their job and may do some work with the downtown
See you, and I'm
folks.
like, backhand you.
So it's a worthy discussion. There is on the agenda tonight, you'll see there's a seminar coming up about bylaws, February 22nd and March 1st, and I would encourage you to attend one of those. Some of the bylaws are very frustrating as to what the municipality can and can't do when it comes to enforcement. And it would be very worthwhile for council to attend this seminar with the staff and to learn firsthand what we can and can't do.
Yep.
Right? Further to that, I know the Reeve, with the coming of the joint planning district, he has a lot of the same concerns when it comes to bylaws, because they're not enforcing them in the RM as well either. So he's going to be at AMM in March with the rest of us who are attending, and he's arranging a meeting with somebody to discuss about the possibility of a bylaw officer servicing both communities and cost sharing it. As well, the point of the meeting is to try to learn exactly what can we enforce and what can't we enforce. Because as a municipality, we don't have policing powers, so there's only so much we can do, you know? And so I think there's more discussion to come on this. It's probably good that it's on the agenda, but I do think that if you can attend, Andre, those meetings in February or March, it'd be well worth your time.
No, I will. I will attend those, and again, I'm gonna maybe dig in a little bit to say that whether it's a bylaw officer or whether we can enforce things or not, I still believe there's some public presence that's required by our community in the downtown area, and not so much as somebody going around moving people, but maybe being a bit of a liaison with the regional health authorities, maybe other communities where these people come from, and see what we can do to change that look, so
Yeah.
I will attend for sure.
The community chaplaincy will be, I think it has asked us for money again this year, and they do put people on the street for some of this. So it would be good if we worked with some of these people who are doing
absolutely.
it now, because they're already in the trenches. And historically, council hasn't been extremely generous with the community chaplaincy. They've had to fight for their money. So hopefully this year, from what I hear, is we should be able to say, yes, we're gonna sponsor you guys this year.
Absolutely. No, thanks.
Can I jump on this one now? All over it? No. Come on.
What do you got?
Please.
Okay.
I will. I'm very passionate about the bylaw enforcement office, or the position, I don't care what you call it. But right now, we basically do our enforcement based on complaints, because we have no one in those positions. So someone complains about Chad, I jump all over Chad. But yet, maybe Trevor's doing the same thing, but because he got complained about, that's where we go in the first place. So we either enforce our bylaws or don't enforce our bylaws. That we need to jump on.
What
We
was
did
any,
apply-
what was any different than when there was one?
What's
I
that?
just- I would just argue back and say, what was any different than before?
Because what happened is we were getting some of the stuff done, and now it's fallen back onto managers, and managers aren't out there looking for it, whereas this person was.
Such as what type
This
of bylaw?
person went
Yeah,
out.
like, give me an example.
When it came to parking, when it came to, the animal control wasn't as much. Storage of unregistered vehicles, parking on the streets, like on the residential street, unsightly properties. Now this is all falling back on managers.
I would,
So
I mean,
there was a guy that was doing that.
I wasn't on council, but I would disagree. I don't think there was much done, before, and I mean, the unsightly buildings that are in town are atrocious, they need to be addressed. I think the parking issue is no different. I just think before, same thing, whoever made a complaint, maybe that person went there, but other than that, they weren't boots on the street, they were driving around in a truck, and, I'm not saying they didn't do anything, but I'm just saying I don't really, I don't know, I don't.
Yeah, they
really-
did actually.
What's that?
They did a very good job of it.
When we had the
They-
bylaw
yeah.
enforcement officer.
They did a
Well, we did.
very good job, yeah.
Of what? I don't wanna be a
enforcing our
pessimist, but of doing what?
Of enforcing our bylaws, and people weren't doing the infractions as they used to. We didn't make necessarily that huge amount of money, but when we got out there and started working with the people, the remedies were better. Now we're falling all backwards again. People were actually fixing the yards, like they were complying. And we would give them an opportunity to half their fine if they didn't do it again, and those that didn't, we just followed the bylaws. But someone was dedicated to that, and now we're slipping through the cracks.
Yeah.
Because
I mean,
it's based on
I would like
complaints.
to, I would like to believe that, but the amount of buildings that are in town right now, some who have been, almost burnt down, but they can still hold up a sheet of plywood on the windows that are still up, and then, it wasn't that long ago, we were talking about how people, if we couldn't put their buildings down because they couldn't afford the dump fee to go do it, the building's still up. We could
We don't
argue,
have that bylaw
we could
person
argue,
there.
we could argue all day, but I mean, I'm not on the person that was the bylaw officer, I'm just saying that I didn't see a whole lot being done, more than likely because it came back to, now what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
I got the letter in the mail, so now make me, right? And back to what Herb had brought up.
So I think we really all want the same thing,
Yeah.
even though we're saying different things, but we want a community that we can be proud of and that rules are enforced, because right now, the rules aren't really being enforced by anybody.
No.
It's kind of the Wild West.
It is.
And I know historically speaking, when you talk about the previous bylaw officer, I know from personal experience, he was out there doing things, because there was things about signage, there was things about parking, and I know that from personal experience, that he got around and he was doing some of that. When we talk about the boarded up buildings and things like that, that's again where I can't stress enough, you guys need to attend those workshops and learn what we can and can't do as a community. You really need to attend those workshops. Because even if I board up my building, if I pay the taxes, I have the right to board up that building. It's not up to you.
No,
That's part of my ownership right.
but you also have the ability too, as a council, to say, you know what, if you don't do this with your property, then we'll come and do it for you, like cutting your grass or doing this to your property, and if you don't wanna pay it, then we'll add it onto your taxes, and then when you can't pay your taxes, then it goes in the tax sale, you can do that.
Yeah.
We did.
What's
With
that?
bylaw enforcement, we did.
Yeah, and you can continue to do that, I'm just saying, we can't just say what you can and cannot do, there's ways to find a back door to figure out how you're going to actually put a bylaw in place so it goes, now, do we have enough manpower to go cut everybody's grass? No, but.
But what we did was we farmed it out because we knew it wasn't gonna be our expense, and then we dinged them with it. If they didn't comply, but we needed that person on the go to make sure they complied.
My suggestion going forward, attend those workshops. Let's the Reeve and I meet with whoever he's got lined up, see, because if we can cost share this position, that makes sense for us all. And then let's come back and see with a plan, what we can do. Because I think we all want the same thing, we just might have different understandings.
I think Andre kind of is right, if the job description has to change.
Yeah, and with the Reeve and with the RM's needs, if we could come up with a description that meets all of us, but I don't think we should be competing or duplicating the work of the service groups. So if the chaplaincy is out there patrolling the
absolutely.
streets, then let's support the chaplaincy.
But supporting them.
Yes. You know?
I guess this is a prime opportunity to bring it to the table. We're at phase 2 of that $360,000 community, remember how we said they were gonna do a community assessment? That's leading into a lot of the stuff you're talking about, having people on the street. So that's another application. We're in round 2. We are 2 in Manitoba, and out of, I think there was 550 applications, we're in the top 10. So that's looking promising.
Okay.
And that will address some of the issues you're talking about, Andre, and that's a 2-year program.
Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna bring that back, right, into March.
I need to know who wants to attend the bylaw enforcement seminar, because we have to register.
There's 2 of them. There's one in Winnipeg and one in
Winnipeg
Brandon.
is February 22nd, which is like next
Next
Friday.
week.
And the one in Brandon is March 1st. But I'll need to make reservations and register people if anyone's interested in attending.
Well, I'll attempt for March 1st.
You'll go for March 1st?
And I'll let you know tomorrow.
Okay.
I'll let you know tomorrow.
Okay.
I'd like to go.
Which one, Larry?
March 1st.
March 1st, Larry.
March 1st.
There's a little van.
Yeah, I'll let you know about March 1st too. It's a Friday, so we only have to take the one day.
Do you want to talk about the cost of a bylaw officer right now, or do you want to wait until we come
You're
back?
looking at about $100,000
Oh, yeah.
with
And
everything.
in the past, how much has he actually generated back?
See, but that's
With-
where we
with
did a little
tickets.
more of an education component, right? So that's how we would process this again, is we would start with the education process. We did reduce a lot of the ticket money. And we did, because people they'd comply, or it was a little later, and we based it on what the infraction was. So to say we made money off of it, you're never gonna make money off of bylaw enforcement.
No, I didn't think so, I was wondering how much we
No,
lose.
and even if you
Yeah.
made half of it, it would come back.
You probably don't even make half.
No, but if you did.
If you got someone out there and the right person, you probably could.
Yeah.
So how do you come up with $100,000?
Because you look at the wages, you look at the benefits,
Yeah.
you look at if you gotta send them to training, because this isn't just gonna be run Mickey Mouse way. You gotta look at a vehicle.
I think there's a description there, isn't there?
Yeah,
Yeah.
What is the vehicle? Is the vehicle with the water treatment plant now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but like we had talked about earlier, you don't necessarily need a truck
I
like that.
I think
You
we
might
need to
something small.
take it like a few steps back and kind of start where Andrew's talking in terms about kind of our bang for our buck. Like, if we're looking to make an impact and our biggest issue is downtown area, and we're trying to do that, and now we're trying to do bylaw enforcement, we're talking about $100,000 for someone to go around and do little things that, sure, they're important, but yet people aren't gonna see that stuff happening. And then we're talking about now we can't enforce our own bylaws. Like it doesn't. We're left, right. Like it's just we're totally contradicting ourselves. But yet that's not a bylaw enforcement officer is not going to go and write me up for my legal shed and then go downtown and deal with the person that's down there. They're two different type of people.
Yeah.
They're not going to be. So if we're talking about $100,000, and we're like, is it even worth the discussion? I guess to even talk about that at $100,000. I mean, I don't make the decision. I'm just saying, but we need to reevaluate what's most important. I'd be more looking at going and looking at the type of person that would do something like that down for the town and throwing $100,000 that direction. And I think it would impact a lot more people and people more happy versus someone to go around writing out tickets for an unsightly building that we may not apparently be able to do anything about anyway.
Yeah,
It's all in your perspective, it's do you want enforcement or not, and that's fine, no matter, it's your decision at the
It's
end of
not,
the day.
it's not
council.
perspective, it's money. It's $100,000 that, again, talking about what the priorities are. So I don't see it as being one of my priorities, but
So
I'm
what do you
just one
say your
person.
priority is? Is your priority the bylaw stuff, or is it the downtown stuff? What do you?
It's more the
downtown.
downtown stuff
Okay.
and that area. I think we heard it loud and clear when we were at all the talks and the debate and people coming in and
Well,
the
I think
downtown revitalization committee, we had that not long ago. I mean, it's repetitive, right? And again, I don't think necessarily one thing is gonna be, or one person is gonna solve it all, but I certainly don't think $100,000 bylaw officer, enforcement officer is gonna do really anything for that issue.
you do the simplest job first, which is like.
It's easy to hand out parking
Walk down the
tickets.
street and hand out parking tickets.
Yeah.
And to me, like, I mean, the parking ticket thing for me was an issue right from day one. And the reason it was is because they pulled a bylaw up from many years ago and introduced it again now, but there was no provisions made to allow parking anywhere for anybody in those areas, but yet they, at one point in time, decided to put apartments into all these buildings, which caused what we're seeing now, which is a parking problem. And the businesses that they allowed, past council and mayor allowed to be put up in the uptown area, also causes the same thing. I mean, you got 3 hairdressing shops within a block vicinity. You got a family intake place and you got a income tax place, and they all require you to be there for a long period of time. I see it every day because I'm there, and I park in front of my own place and I get nothing but flack for it. And I get it from some people, I understand what they're saying, but I would rather park in front of my own business than park in front of your business on 2nd Street or 3rd Street, or you know what I mean?
So is
It doesn't make sense.
So as it relates to the cost of the bylaw officer, which is where we're at,